very funny gentleman. By the way, I'm glad you folks are in a good mood tonight. I really am. On October 18th, this man will be performing at the Throckmorton Theater in Mill Valley, California. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome back our good friend, Eddie Brill. Eddie, come on out.
Hey, everybody. Nice to see you. You know, when I was growing up, my grandma used to always say, "The truth will set you free." Then she went to prison for perjury. I'm lying. You know, if you haven't been lied to lately, try online dating. Nobody tells the truth in online dating. Sometimes they ask questions like, "What's the worst thing you ever did?" And you can't tell the truth there. Sometimes they, I thought you would know, but sometimes they lie about their age, sometimes they lie about their weight, sometimes they don't have a picture of themselves. So sometimes it's like a horse. You're so insecure you got to show your horse? Years ago I tried it and I went online and the girl in the picture, I set up a date with her. She was 28 in the picture. When she showed up, she was 52. 52. I thought it was the girl's mother showing up to tell me she couldn't make it. But the good news, she let me ride her horse. You know, but we're all insecure to a degree. You know, we grow up thinking we're not good enough, so we go on a date, we're not going to bring ourselves to the date. We don't want that to show up. So we create a character we think the other person wants. And they do the same thing. They create a character they think we want. You're not on a date, you're in a play. And you have lines like, "So how many brothers do you have?" And you don't even care if she has a family. You're just wondering what she looks like without that dress. And girls pack on so much makeup, they show up to the date looking like a kabuki dancer. Like, he's not going to see my real face till I know he can provide for me. You know, we're lied to our whole lives. We are. You know, we're lied to about everything. Food, politics, Santa Claus, the Easter Bunny, the Tooth Fairy, Celine Dion, you know. When I was a kid in school, I took religion class, and they told me that sex was the devil's work. Oddly enough, it was taught to me by people who never had sex before. That's like getting hunting lessons from Dick Cheney. Not a good source. Not the source you want. But I don't believe there's a devil. Because I believe God created everything, so why would he create a devil? He's like, "Well, I made this beautiful planet with mountains and trees and ducks and Elvis Costello. But there's not enough drama in my life. Let me create some son of a bitch who's going to go against everything I stand for. And just to really make him mean, I'm going to force him to wear a red jumpsuit with horns, a tail, and a fork." Yeah, come on. You know what's funny about that? The devil has a costume. And here's the weird part. Many people wear this costume to Halloween, yet no one dresses like God. And I figured it out. This is what you do. You show up to someone's house in your street clothes in your bag, and you're like, "Trick or treat," and they go, "Who are you?" And you go, "I'm God." They go, "Well, where's your costume?" "Are you kidding me? I'm made in his image. Now give me some candy." That's how it works. Simple. But there could be a devil. We don't know. I don't know. If you say you know, you're lying, because no one knows what happened back then. But there was a devil. He would never create sex. He made deviled eggs. That's cool. And he has that hot sauce with his picture on the bottle. You know, he has good product. You know, he's the devil. He has good stuff. But he would never create sex. He's the devil. He would never let us have that pleasure. God created sex, and this is how I know. What do I yell when we're having sex? "Oh, God," because we're thanking the manufacturer for the wonderful gift that he's given us. I also have a problem with the story of the first 7 days on earth. If you remember the story, the first day there was darkness, and God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. But here's where it gets weird. On the fourth day, he creates the sun, the moon, and the stars. So what the hell was he using for light on the first day? What, did he create a flashlight and run out of batteries on day 4? Ever ready my ass? You know. And man wasn't created till the 6th day. So how do we know what happened the first 5 days? Maybe that's why God created man, so he had someone to tell the story to. Adam, wake up. You're not gonna believe the week I had. First it was darkness, then I made a flashlight, then I ran out of batteries. You don't know what a bitch it is to find D-cell batteries. Then I took molten lava and turned it into... Are you listening to me? If you don't pay attention to me, I'm gonna create a woman and she's not gonna listen to you.
Happy birthday, Eddie Brill, ladies and gentlemen. Nice shirt. When you've been cliff diving? Thank you.
I'm in the aquamarines.
We'll be right back with Beirut, everybody. Nice job. Thank you.
You're listening to the Silver Phoenix Happy Hour with Blaze and Ken. And now, Blaze and Ken.
Hello. Welcome to the Silver Phoenix Happy Hour. I'm Blaze.
And I am Ken. Welcome back.
Welcome back to our brand new season. I think this is season 4, right? The very light and dark season, I think we're calling it.
Something like that. Yeah, well, right now it's very light and dark. I'm actually getting prepared for Halloween, so.
I love it. Do you have a costume yet already?
Greetings, kiddies. Welcome. It's almost here.
That's a really good imitation. I will say that.
Yeah, it depends on how the day is, because that hurts the voice, you know. So it's like you don't want to do it too often, you know.
Now I know you know what his real name was, the Crypt Keeper. What was his real name?
John Kasser.
And what facts do you know?
John Kassir, however you want to pronounce it.
Yeah, I'm sure you have some facts that are in that brain of yours. So tell us something interesting about him.
Oh, come on. You're going to put me on the spot? I mean, besides being a voiceover guy, an actor who's been acting since, I believe, like the 70s. He actually played in one of the episodes of Tales from the Crypt. If I remember correctly, it might be the Crypt Keeper's origin episode. But I know he was very proactive and loved every moment of working on that show.
Yeah, he was definitely creepy, that's for sure.
And funny, and very funny.
Very funny. Yes, you're right. Speaking of funny, that's a better segue than creepy. The funny part is we have a comedy icon coming on our show today, Eddie Brill.
We do, yeah.
Now, do you know much about Eddie? Do you is there something that you can tell me about him since I put you on the spot for the Crypt Keeper?
Well, luckily we do kind of do pre-production, so I knew he was going to be our guest today. So thanks for not just throwing that at me as out of the blue. No, I know that Eddie's a comedian, a writer, and I'm really looking forward to getting to know him.
Yeah, for sure. Did you see, in the opening clip, I think our audience got a chance to see that he was on David Letterman, and he was actually the warm-up audience person, the comic who would warm up the audience. And I think that's such a special job to have, because not only are you doing the behind the scenes, the front of the camera, and, just have such a cool, so I can't wait to talk to him. And I have so many questions for him. That's going to be really exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. I really can't wait.
Yeah, for sure.
So it's been a long time since we've actually spoke about stuff. How about we just play catch up?
Yeah, sure.
I'm gonna tell you, one of the best things that I've actually gotten a chance to see this year was recently. I saw Spinal Tap 2: The End Continues.
Oh.
And it's amazing. I mean, I've always been a huge fan of the original This Is Spinal Tap movie. I thought Rob Reiner and all those guys did a fantastic job. A little too on the head for a documentary, or actually a mockumentary, or a rockumentary, depending on how you want to look at it. even though it was a parody, a lot of people, I didn't realize when it first came out, didn't even realize it was actually a parody. They actually thought it was a real rock band because these
Right.
guys sold it so well. I'm actually reading the book on the creation of the movie too, and it's something. It's really funny. A lot of stories. I just got the Criterion Collection. Originally, Rob Reiner shot 4 hours of video or 4 hours of film for this thing and whittled it down to an hour and 20 minutes.
Amazing.
And the new Criterion Blu-ray just came out. I picked it up. The second disc has an hour and a half of bonus footage that was never seen. And I'm like, I can't wait to get to see all of it. I'm a huge fan, so I'm a big Spinal Tap nerd.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been watching a lot of K dramas and C dramas. I don't know if you're familiar, but they're like the Korean dramas and the Chinese dramas. I love them. I've just been more into more, I don't say wholesome TV, but more wholesome TV. It's true. I just don't want to. I don't want to see all the creepy stuff right now. I got a lot going on in the world. We're just kind of like trying to keep it nice and romantic over here. But
well, you're not ready for the Game of Thrones series coming out?
Well, of course I am. That's as a matter of fact, somebody was here earlier today, and I have a Game of Thrones Monopoly game, and it plays.
Of course you do.
Of course I do. You press the top, and it says dun, 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 it's the whole thing. So of course, yes, I'm super excited about it.
That's great.
I know that I think tomorrow, maybe they have sneak previews of it tonight, but Tron Ares comes out, and then of course the big one, in my opinion, Eagles Giants tonight. Go Eagles! We got to start off with that. Come on, our new season, we have to have our rivalry going again. I can't wait to hear, because I know that Eddie, I'm not sure who he likes, so I won't even try to guess, but we'll have to ask him when he comes on, who's his favorite football team. If he doesn't watch football, he may or may not. Who knows?
Good. We could put him on the spot like you put me on the spot earlier. Great.
Well, hey, maybe
That's
we'll
Blaze.
him.
That is Blaze for you. Putting our guests on the spot anytime they show up. We did do pre-production, right?
Listen, if I thought you couldn't handle it, or Eddie couldn't handle it, or anybody else couldn't handle it, I wouldn't do it. But I think, it's going to be a fun night tonight. I'm really looking forward to it. And I actually see that Mr. Eddie Brill, comedy icon, is in the house about to join us. So Ken, why don't you let him in? Let's say hello.
All right.
Hello. Hi,
Hello.
Eddie. So
Hi
nice
there.
to see you.
Yeah, same here. It's we were gonna be together a month or two ago, and I've just been crying ever since. And but now I'm all better, and
Yes.
the tears have dried up. You can't see, but but I'm good. I'm so happy to see you guys. Hey.
Yes.
It's definitely a pleasure to meet you. So obviously you guys know each other.
Yeah.
We do.
What's interesting is we're not best friends, but we are. We've worked in the same venues, we've been together, we've hung out, and we respect each other, which I think is rare and important. And I would consider, and anytime she would ask me to do something, I would do it. I don't know what you guys were talking about when I came here, but it seemed like there was some kind of fight or war or some kind of thing going on.
Oh,
it was
that's
actually
every episode.
It was actually saying that it's Thursday night football tonight, and it's the Eagles versus the Giants. I'm an Eagles fan. Ken is Giants. Are you any of those teams?
In 1969, I was a little boy, and the Mets won the World Series on my birthday. The Knicks won the championship, and I was at that seventh game. The New York Rangers, who I'm recording right now, they went to the semifinals, and the Jets won the only Super Bowl in their history. So those are my teams. And
Wow.
in my lifetime, it's been like, it's like being like an Our Gang character who just keeps getting his ass kicked. That I've ever loved. It's like, wow.
I got a friend at work that I think would totally fall in love with you because you guys appreciate a lot of the same teams.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you could all commiserate very well together.
Yeah, the Mets have won 2 World Series in their history. The Jets have won 1. The Rangers have won 1 in my lifetime. and the Knicks have won 2 in their lifetime. So it doesn't give me a lot of things to cheer for, but at least I stick with my team even if they suck, and that's the
Right.
one thing I think I have going for me.
Yeah, exactly.
Or I'm a loser, baby. Why don't you kill me?
Yeah. Well, let me get this started off too. How did you guys actually meet? Do you remember?
The time I remember her so vividly was in like Avenue, like 14th Street. There was that
Yeah.
club,
Oh,
and
Hamlin's.
yeah, and I just remember seeing her there and just let's go mesmerized, and it was very nice. And I actually went up and said hi, and it's been nice ever since.
Yeah, that was such a fun show because I got to meet, and I had met Keith Alberstadt
Right.
first. And then he was saying he wanted to do a show. And I said, oh, I'm a producer. Why don't I do it with you? Sure. I'll do all the legwork and you get the comics and do all the funny stuff. So he said, sure, that sounds like a good deal. And it was Chris Wilkes too. It was Keith Alberstadt, Chris Wilkes. It was called the Center of Attention Show. I remember the name because I thought it was such a cool name for a show for comedians. And that's where like Jim Gaffigan would come and do a set just to try something. You were there. Nate Bargatze was there. Like there was so many names, some of the female comics. Like, I mean, it was just Nikki Glaser. I remember her on the show right before they all, kind of got really big. So it was pretty amazing.
Yeah. Well, it was a good venue. It had a good energy to it. It
Yes.
sounds corny, but it was really true. And, when I was putting comedians on Letterman, we would go there and we'd be able to do a set and work it out at a venue like that because it was pure comedy.
Yeah, absolutely. We actually played your clip from Letterman that you sent, and at the beginning of the show before we came on. And if I could ask, like in that clip, because I'm sure you've watched it or what it was, what was your favorite bit during that to do? Because it was 6 minutes, so that's a long time. Is there one that really stands out that the audience connected to and that you really liked?
Well, what was interesting about that bit is I was also on with Artie Lang. He was one of the guests, and Artie had a bit about dating. Now that was a mistake on the producer's part. If they saw that Artie had a bit about dating and I had a bit about online dating, they should have said, okay, one of you gets to do it. So Artie did it, and I didn't know he was going to do it. So I came out on stage, and I called back one of his jokes. And the audience took a second to go, didn't I hear? I get it. He's doing a callback. And that's the part of that. I did 10 appearances on the show as a guest. And I forget that wasn't number 1, but it was, but it smelled like number 2. Ladies and gentlemen, no, it was, it was later on. What's interesting about sets like that, you need to come up with a bit that's 5 seconds or so to let the audience know that you're funny. If you take a minute and a half to, you better be the most cathartic laugh ever. So, and that one was the one where I said, I asked, my grandmother told me the truth will set you free. Then
Yes.
she went to prison for perjury,
Yes.
Boom, you have to do that. And what's interesting about that story is, there was one time we were on the set because I worked there for 17 years and I was on the set, and Eli Manning of your New York Giants was flying back from Denver from the Super Bowl, and he was a guest on the show, but there was an issue with landing the plane because of the bad weather. So they said, Eddie, put a set together. I said, I got one, don't worry. And as I'm putting a set together and I'm writing it down and I'm trying on a sport jacket and all these different things, I realized I didn't have that opening joke. I needed that joke. I needed that 5-second joke. And I had written something at home that I had never tried in front of people or animals or anything. And I thought, I think it's very funny. And the joke is, it was so crowded. It's been so crowded in New York. The other day I'm in Penn Station. It was like Grand Central Station in there. Okay. So, I thought, okay, there's a funny joke. And your laugh is the biggest laugh that it's ever gotten. But one of the things that I didn't even think about, because it was just so quickly everything was unfolding, was that the audience was 99% people from either other countries or not New York. It was never New York audiences. So they had no idea what I was saying. So I did the joke with all the confidence in a confidence man. And the only laugh I got was from the sax player, Bruce, who laughed because it bombed so horrifically. And it was the audience, and I just, what can I do? And I just said, okay. And it took me a little bit to get them back, and I finally did. But I remember that set. And honestly, I think it's a funny joke. I thought, but I should have probably realized, wait a second, they're not going to get it. If you're in Sweden, you don't know the difference between Grand Central and Penn Station,
Yeah.
Or
well,
you
that's
do.
why I laugh, because Grand Central, I say that all the time. What is it? It's like Grand Central in here.
Yeah, right.
The joke.
Yeah.
But you have to be from the tri-state area to understand what that means, or at least have visited enough to know, kind of what that
So
is.
it just died. It was, but I got through it. I'm still here. Look at me. Look at me.
I love that you're pulling songs from things that you're saying, because I do the same thing all the time.
I don't even realize what I do. Like, I didn't even realize I just did that. But I do it all the time. And sometimes I'm trying to be aware of it, because people, but I just can't help it. The girl can't help it. The girl, anytime there's a thing, I just can't not sing, and I do it. And hopefully, I have friends that love it, and I have friends that probably don't love it. And I don't know, but look, I do what I do.
Well, Ken and I are both musically inclined, or musical, so we totally will love it. So maybe we might even throw a couple in ourselves, but we don't have the timing that you do. So I actually want to know. So let's talk about Eddie Brill, the teenager. Like, when did you really know that you were funny? Was it younger than that? Were you the class clown? Like, I want to know kind of what it was like growing up.
It's a combination for that answer. My mom was hilarious and very dry, and in our house, my father was pretty funny, but my mom really was really funny. And I had incredible influence of the strong, funny, smart women. My mom, my sister, my aunts. I had 3 aunts that were hilarious. My babysitters were my, cousins from those aunts. And we were always watching not cartoons. They were always watching comedy shows. Like, I remember watching a Jackie Gleason special, and there was a scene in it where this guy's in the bathtub, and I remember the music, and he's scrubbing himself, which I found out years later was a song written by Jackie Gleason. He wrote a lot of the incidental music in those shows. He's and then they pull the stopper, and they go cut back to the thing, and he's gone. The guy's gone, and I didn't take a bath by myself. I was like 5 or 6. My Aunt Anita had to hold my hand when I was in the bath, just because I thought I was going to just go down the drain. But there was always comedy in our house. When I was a little kid, I went to sleepaway camp, and I only realized this story in the last couple of years. And I wasn't happy. We were very poor, and the clothing I wore was probably hip nowadays, but back then, pointy shoes, pointy sneakers, and all this kind of stuff. And I got a lot of crap for it. And so I was a chubby little boy who was poor, and it sound like Fagin, poor, or Magoof, poor lonely child when you're alone in the world. So anyway, I just remember being funny got all the people who weren't that nice to me, because I was a chubby little poor kid. When I made them laugh, they were all of a sudden my best friends. Mm-hmm. So I found out, go to the funny, and that'll get you a certain thing. So it might sound a little sad, but it was I was from a funny background, and it was okay. And then I've always loved words, and I've always done a lot of word play and funny word things. Like, you can buy anything you want in my store, just don't patronize me. Like, I always do word play and have fun with words. And when I was in high school, my stepfather he died when he was only 37. Mm. And I was in charge of the family. And in order to sort of get through the craziness that we were going through, there were 5 kids, and we were poor and all this. I was just funny, and everyone laughed and loved each other. So there was always some kind of comedy saving our lives or being beautiful. And when I went to college, I went to school to be a news anchor person or a sports announcer. because I had the voice, and I used to. In high school, I used to announce the basketball and the football games, and I used to do a Howard Cosell impression. And I went to South Broward High School, so I was Broward Cosell. And it was at Broward Cosell, it's beautiful day in Hollywood, Florida. And I would do all that stuff, and it got publicity. And when my stepfather died, he was only 37, like I said, and I realized, you know what, I'm going to make the best of this life. I'm not going to just, I was a good math person, but it was more like I wanted to do some fun things. And the first week of college, I had met Dennis Leary, Stephen Wright, Chris Phillips, Adam Roth, all these people that we were all funny, and we formed a comedy group, and it was wildly successful. And we worked hard, and it was really exciting. I remember getting my first laugh. I played the first character in the first scene of the first Emerson Comedy Workshop skit. I got a laugh, and I've been chasing that my whole life, like a drug. So it's a combination of a lot of things that have gotten me through. But comedy has always been my lady. She's my lady.
I was about to go for Kenny Rogers. Lady.
All right, lady. When I'm with you, I'm smiling. That's sick. Oh, whoa, 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 your charms.
We could just sing the whole show. That's a great opener.
Listen, I'll pull money out to make that happen. For the rest of
right. Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. Speaking of Letterman, was there a comic that you had come on that was like an up and comer that you knew was destined for greatness just the first time that you?
A lot of them. Mike Birbiglia was one of them.
Oh yeah,
it's a good example. There's a guy named Joe Wong, who was a comic that I saw in Boston, and I found out after the audition. I went up to him after the audition. I said, "Look, your Chinese accent is very thick, and it's going to be hard to hear. I think we should work on this and get it so that you're more understandable," which he agreed. But he was thinking of quitting comedy. And that night he auditioned at the Improv in Cambridge, and he was just brilliantly funny. And what's interesting about it, as I worked really hard with him for a few years, getting him together, and his comedy was just brilliant. And one of the producers wrote me a nasty letter saying, "This guy funny, he's not." And and they were like, sometimes the people are jealous that you work with, and not everyone was fantastic there, but there's one or two people that are always like, jealous or weird or don't like what you're doing. And this person wrote a nasty letter, and I knew, I was confident that Joe Wong was going to do great. And not only did he do great, he blew the roof off the place. And after his set was over, Joe Biden asked him to be on the Correspondents' Dinner. Ellen DeGeneres called and said, "Will you be on the red carpet for the Emmy Awards?" Rory Rosegarten, the great manager who manages Brian Regan and Ray Romano and all them, he called and said, "I want to he wanted to marry him," which was weird. He wanted to manage him, and he wanted to manage his marriage. And so when Joe was done, the people in China rejoiced because he was one of the rare natural-born Chinese comedians that had done late-night television. So now I'm talking to all these newspapers in Asia, and they're asking me about Joe and how we found him. And weirdly enough, that one producer didn't write me back and apologize because, but I knew that it was just, it was really, and he did very, very well. And he became a star back home in China, had his own show. So there's a lot of those comedians that I gave a shot on the show, and they did well. And I remember Birbiglia was really great. And Roy Wood Jr., I gave him his break on the show. And, the odd part is that I couldn't give everyone a break. You only had a certain amount of spots. Mm-hmm. And some people thought I hated them if I didn't put them on. It was very weird, but it's a thin line you have to walk. But I was able to help some people, and I was very happy, very thrilled.
Definitely.
Kumail Nanjiani, I gave him, one of his first spots ever, and he talks about it. I taught, you can't teach people to be funny, but I do a lot of feedback workshop, and I've been doing them for 30 years. And somebody called me up and said, "Hey, there's the two Daniels, the guys who directed that movie that won the Academy Award. They said they were in your class when you were teaching at Emerson." It was like, so I feel good. And then I contacted them, and they were like, "Yeah, we learned so much." And It was very nice. So it's growing up as a kid in a house where I had to be in charge and be able to pull that off gave me the confidence later in life to be able to pull off anything that needs to get done.
Definitely. I think as a performer, that's the beauty of a performer. You just don't know who you're going to touch and when, like, you know, because there could be somebody in the audience, you say the silliest thing, and then all of a sudden they have a memory, and it was something that went way back, and it touched them and you know, helped them to kind of get through the day or something. Or maybe I go through TikTok sometimes, or like Instagram for the funny, just to find the funny just in the morning or something, just to start my day. And I know exactly who to go to find who I'm going to laugh at. And I'm more into like there was a guy in the water and a swan was being very territorial. So the swan was coming after him in the water, and he was trying to hide underneath. The swan was attacking. It was the people laughing so hard. Like I watch those kind of things. Those make me laugh so hard. I just laugh the whole time. And then I watch it on repeat like 3, 4, 5.
I understand. Yeah. I remember most for me in comedy. I was 5 years old. It was my birthday, which is in October, where we're filming this. And I was 5 years old, and my parents got me a joke book. And the joke book was called Jokes, Riddles, and Boners. Now, back then, boners meant like, oh, whoops, boner, you know, kind of thing. Now, I guess it could mean that nowadays, but it's like, whoops, whoa, boners. But it was like Jokes, Riddles, and Boners. And there was a joke in there that I was 5, and it made me laugh so hard. And the joke was simple, 2 lines. It was like, what did Tennessee? And the answer is the same thing Arkansas. And I howled, and my parents were like, what's so funny? And I explained to them, and then I ran home. Well, I didn't run home. When they got me home, I was only 5. I didn't I'm taking off. I got home. I started taking index cards and doing things like, you know, I have like a knife and a battery, and like a salt with a battery, you know, like I take all these words and play with them, and little by little I kept doing that. Then I started. The guy's name was Bill Ding. You know what I mean? I started taking all these words and playing with them and having fun. Then I saw George Carlin on The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson. And I went, oh my God, there's the guy. That's the man. That's the person who I really, you know, I admire. And so, you know, when you start out as a comedian, you act like, at the beginning, most comics, except maybe one like Dave Chappelle, who got it right away. But most people act like their favorite comedian because you don't know who you are. You know, that's one of the weird things about this life. It's kind of sad, is you're told who you are. You're told, you know, and you're, you know, it's such a fear-based education system that we have, that everyone scares you and to being the person they want you to be instead of. So what you do as a comedian, you get rid of all the bullshit, and you get rid of it. You take all it off, all the stuff that they piled on your shoulders, and you find out who your most authentic self is. And that's how you become a great comedian. So at the beginning, I would act like George Carlin on stage. And I wrote a joke that I loved, and I thought George would probably love it one day. And I was proud of it. And I did it on Star Search. And the joke went, how can you have a word like nonchalant when there's no such word as chalant? And then I did an act out. Oh my God, I'm late for work. I can't find a thing to wear. God, am I chalant today? And it's like, calm down, Ray. Be like me, nonchalant. And I did that, and that sounded like Carlin, what I just did, and it was very Carlin-esque. And the show aired on Star Search in January of '85, it was. And a friend called up and said, you did George Carlin's joke on TV. I went, no, I didn't. I wrote that joke. I know it sounds like him. He says, no, I saw him do it at this show. So I dropped the joke, and I was so bummed out. I know I wrote it. I know Carlin's material back and forward, and I didn't see him do it. And so many years later, I was in Viva Las Vegas at the Bally's Hotel, and I was with Robert Schimmel in the comedy club, and George Carlin was in the big room. So during the day, I saw Carlin playing the slots, and I went up to him, and he was very nice. He always was very nice to comedians. And I told him the story, and he laughed. He said, well, you're smart to get rid of the joke because people are going to think you stole it from me. But the truth is someone told me that joke, and I didn't know it was a comedian's joke. So I thought it was just a funny thing the guy said, and I did it on stage. So it turns out I'm the son of a bitch who stole your joke. And and he was so nice to me. And over the years, he him and his brother would call me up and say, hey, we saw you on this show and we love you, you're our favorite comedian. I've heard, and not only directly from him, but a friend of mine, we were at a show and Carlin was there, and the people at the table were talking, and Carlin asked them to shut up because they wanted to see me. And it was just really nice to have your hero think you're a funny comedian. And no matter what happens in the world, I always have that there. So, and then I became close to Carlin, and in 2008, he passed away. And his daughter, Kelly, who's the greatest, is like my sister. She said to me, now that my dad passed, I want you to do that joke again. So I did it. And I was thinking, how can I do it? And the way I've been doing it is pretty much telling this story.
Yeah.
So I'm not doing the joke like, oh, here's a joke. And, but it's, it's interesting about, I was living with Robert Schimmel at one time, and I came in the room, and I said, I came up with a great joke. And I said, I looked in the paper and it said, donate your sperm for $100. And I'm thinking, think of all the money I let slip through my fingers last year. And, my girlfriend blew 50 grand and, this thing. And so I was so excited. And Robert goes, that's my joke. I do that. You probably, and I was like, oh no. And all these years later, I wonder if because I didn't remember him doing it, and maybe he said he did it, but no, he, sometimes you hear a joke from somebody and you think you're the one who wrote it. But anyway, it's a long story, but it was like, my hero became my friend, and it was really terrific.
Yeah, that's amazing. I actually did Star Search. I did College Star Search. And myself and the piano player Teddy Raffetto, we won. It was an original song called "Someone Special." I sang and he played the piano. He's amazing. Nice. And we won College Star Search, so that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, pretty good. That got me to LA and started, my career in LA and working at the Comedy Store and living at the Comedy Store, which I did. And it was my living room was the Comedy Store and the greatest comics in the world, and I get to work with them and get advice from them. And, I was very blessed to be able to have a lot of mentors. So the very first time I was doing Letterman, Joan Rivers and David Brenner helped me with the set, but Joan more than anybody. We were both working in Milwaukee. She was at the big theater and I was at the great comedy club Milwaukee had, Comedy Cafe. And we were at the airport flying home the next day, and there was Joan. And I had met her once before with Judy Gold, and we were at Stand Up New York together, and we were talking to her. But she meets a billion, trillion people. So I went over to her and I said, hi, Joan. I don't know if you remember. And she said she did, but I don't think she did. But she was very nice. And I told her, she said, well, how's your career? And I said, well, I'm doing Letterman in 10 days or so. And she was, oh, that's terrific. And it's my first time. So we had Midwest Express was the airline. I don't know if you've ever been on it, but it's like two seats. It's like first class all the way through the plane. Oh. So, and there was no like first class. You sat and they had silverware that in those days and hot cookies. Yay, hot cookies. And so when the flight takes off heading back to New York, just after we took off, Joan got up and asked the woman sitting next to me if she would exchange seats with her. So I sat down. The woman, Joan, sat next to me, says, all right, let me hear it. I go, what? Let me hear the set. So I did the set, and she gave me great advice about taking my time, about being nonverbal, instead of saying no, shake my head no, things like that. And when I did the show, which was 1997, she was up there with me, and she was incredible advice and just so great to me. And then a little time later, I was warming up the crowd for this New York Magazine party, and it was on the set of Saturday Night Live. And there was all celebrities in the audience. And every time someone came a little bit late, I would make a joke. Hey, well, you didn't bring your watch, or that kind of lame stuff. And the audience was eating it up and loving it. And I think people were like going to the back and coming back in, they just wanted me to make fun of them or something. And all of a sudden, about a quarter of the way through, Joan Rivers showed up, and the crowd's like, now you can give Joan Rivers some shit. And I told the crowd, I said, no, I'm not going to do that, because here's the story. And I told them the story, how Joan helped me, and they gave her a standing ovation. Wow. And they made her, and she cried, and it was really, really cool. And I I always treasure that story because, you know, people like Brenner and Joan Rivers, two of the greatest comics of all time, stopped watching me do, you know, Brenner saw me at Gotham and said, oh, this one joke you do, you should try this out. I mean, you know, that's what comics do for each other.
Yeah. I was going to ask you who your mentors were, but I think you've kind of said that.
Yeah, well, you know, what was interesting, one of my favorite comics of all time was Jonathan Winters. And, you know, there's a bit on the internet called The Stick, and it's like 5 or 6 minutes long. And they, you know, Jack Parr hands the original host of, or one of the original hosts of The Tonight Show, handed him a stick, and for 5.5 minutes, he just ad-libbed. And during the warm-up one night after working at Letterman, I was there 17 years, you know, I heard every question that the audience asked. And the one night someone said, hey, who's your favorite comedian? And I perked up because of all the, as close as I was to him, I had never asked him that. And he said, without even skipping a beat, he said, Jonathan Winters. So, you know, he was influential to a lot of people. And, but he was one of my favorites. Lily Tomlin was one of my favorites. And I got to work with her. Which was great. And she gave me her phone number, and I had it in one of those Casios, and the Casio fell in the pool, and every number that I ever had is lost.
Oh, no.
So if you want to go swim in the pool, you might be able to hear Lily Tomlin's phone number.
Oh, man. Ken, before you ask your question, because I see you're about to, I think we need to take a song break. Happy birthday to you. Come on, Ken. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Eddie. Happy birthday to you.
Hey.
Ken was on mute.
Oh, man.
I think that was purposely done.
Yeah, the Mets won the World Series 1969, October 16th, on my birthday. How can you get a better birthday present than your team winning? And my mom came up with an idea at the bakery in Brooklyn to put a cake that was in the shape of Shea Stadium and put all the players as candles all around the thing. Oh. So now when the Mets won the World Series, the press heard about this, saw this cake in the window, and they send the whole press corps down to the 18th Avenue in Brooklyn because they figured Gil Hodges' wife was coming to get the cake because they lived very close by. And my mom showed up in a house dress and rollers in her hair. They were very disappointed.
That's the best. Go ahead, Ken, your question. Wait, we can't hear you. Your audio is not working. Well, anyway, so I'm not sure what his question would have been, but I was going to ask you at the beginning, we were talking about movies that are coming out. And Ken was just watching Spinal Tap.
Oh, yeah.
Spinal Tap 2, because I think that was going to be one of his questions. Like, is there a movie that you just watch on repeat that you just love over and over again?
When I was a kid growing up, I just loved movies. Movies it was my life. And I got a job at a movie theater because I wanted to see every movie that ever came out. And I was only 14 and you had to be 16 to work, but I didn't care. It was $1.40 an hour. I didn't care. And I just got a job. And at it was like in 73, 74. And it was like, Chinatown and, some of the greatest movies in the world came out. Friends of Eddie Coyle, just Paper Moon, ironically, was the first movie that was playing there when I started. And the comedy club that I started back in 1984 was the Paper Moon. Very odd combination. But my favorite film, I would say, of all time is an Italian film called Cinema Paradiso. And it has the Ennio Morricone soundtrack. And it's a film about love in many forms, love between a mother and son, love between a mentor and pupil, but mostly a film about the love of film. And I think it's one of the greatest films ever in the history of the world. A close second is a 1981 French film called Diva. And Diva, it has 3 stories that intertwine into one so beautifully. The soundtrack is spectacular. The story is great. I've seen it 30, 40 times, and only because I want to keep turning people onto it. And that's 2. And number 3 would be Blade Runner, the director's cut. I think is one of the greatest, most
Which
perfect
director's
films.
cut at this point?
Yeah. It's funny. I went to see the very first movie that had a director's cut. It was a Western, and I can't think of the name of it offhand. And my friend said to the guy, he said, $19. I go, well, I guess that's the director's cut. Yeah. But it was the very first director's cut that came out. It was great. I would say that it's hard to pick the next 7, but I would say that I would say Being There is one of the funniest films ever. Clever, Peter
movie.
Sellers, great film. What's Up, Doc, which was Peter Bogdanovich film, was an amazing film, one of the funniest films ever, and it was just slapstick, and it's like a noises off kind of a movie, and so it's very hard to pick my favorite film. It's harder to pick my favorite music, but film wise, those Cinema Paradiso is in a class by itself. It's just and he has nobody else in his class. He's the only person in that class. We had on Letterman, we had a student who was the only person that graduated in their class, and I always had that line in my head, but I didn't know. I wish I would have known that story was happening, because if I would have known that, I would have told them that line. Our next guest is the only in a class by herself, ladies and gentlemen. But anyway, so yeah. Blazing Saddles, it's amazing, but it's just hard to choose. There's so many great films. I think Chinatown is one of the greatest films and scripts and actors. But yeah, the great thing about films, there's always great filmmakers and always new films. And I have a friend, Julie, who's my film partner. We went to college together, and like this weekend, I think we're going to see another film. Oh, it's the one called Roof Man, and I heard that's really good.
Channing Tatum movie, yeah.
Yeah, and I hear that's very good. So yeah, and then like late at night, I'll be can't sleep, and I'll just find some movie from either a Hitchcock movie from the 30s, or watch Blazing Saddles again. Something. I can't get enough of that funky stuff.
Yeah. I just heard today that Kiss of the Spider Woman is coming out, the musical.
Yeah.
And Jennifer Lopez stars as the Spider Woman. I think that's pretty cool. I'm interested. So I remember seeing the one that won the Academy Award, the straight, I call it a straight movie because it's not a musical. Straight but yeah, and that, I think William Hurt, right? He got he won the best actor. Yeah. So I'm curious.
And I saw it on Broadway, which was really great. It's
Cheetah Rivera, wasn't it?
Cheetah Rivera,
yeah.
And yeah, so I saw recently that there was something in the East Village where it was free if you had to see that movie. They were trying to get, to have a tribute to the movie, and if you wrote in, you would get to see it for free. And it's a classic,
Yeah, I'll be curious. There's a lot of good stuff coming out. I honestly haven't been to the theater, sadly, in a while, but I think the last thing I saw probably was, what was the Wicked? I did see Wicked, because I have little goddaughters, and they drag me along to Moana 2, Wicked, Little Mermaid, whatever.
Right, of course, and they're classics. I was very lucky to meet the gentleman who directed The Lion King, the movie, and I was at a comedy club at Caroline's, and he came up to me afterwards and said, "I love this thing," and I said, "So what do you do?" And he said, "Well, I directed The Lion King," and I said, "Oh my God!" He said, "Yeah, we're playing it at Radio City Music Hall this weekend," and so I took my nephew, who was a little boy, and got to see that, and I almost wrote a film with him. We were going to write the Penguin movie that was eventually Robin Williams or Jim Carrey. I forgot who was that, and we were writing that film together, and unfortunately it didn't pay off. But I can't get enough of movies, even if the movie's mediocre, and I can find some joy in that. The Third Man is one of the greatest films of all time. One of the coolest, most surreal friendships I have in the world is, it's almost unbelievable if I say the words, it's Dick Cavett. Dick Cavett and I met in 2007, 2008, and we hit it off immediately, like best friends. And it was crazy. And in fact, when we got back to New York after we did this event for Johnny Carson, we were having lunch together. I said, I have to, and he was laughing at my jokes, which, it's a thrill. And I said, I have to tell you, this is so surreal. I don't even know if you know how surreal this is for me. He goes, yeah, when I was a young comedian, I loved and worshiped Groucho Marx, and I went to have lunch with Groucho. I said, well, you're no Groucho Marx. I don't know why I said that or what. And he laughed so hard, and that cemented our friendship. And we've been in, I've known him for, 15, maybe 20 years. I've known him, and I go to his house for Thanksgiving. It's crazy sitting with him, and he's mentioned me in books, and he's done a lot of events with it. I did a little tour with him, and I'm so blessed to be able to do what I love and then do it with the people I love doing it.
Yeah.
I never realized just how funny Dick Cavett was until I saw him in Rocky Horror Show.
Oh God, yeah. Yeah, he was incredible. He did a lot of Broadway shows and off-Broadway shows, and and just a really clever person who, I just loved his humor. When I was a little kid and watching the Dick Cavett show, I knew that was one of the shows that, a lot of the people who wouldn't do the Tonight Show or wouldn't do these shows, like Katharine Hepburn and Robert Mitchum and all those people, they would do the Cavett show because they respected how funny he was. And also, one thing I pointed out to Dick that he didn't even realize is that he would put the music guests first, and no talk show did that. I mean, like, say he had Sly and the Family Stone or Janis Joplin, they would go on first playing music, where in Letterman and all the shows, the band would play last. Because in a sense, as a comedian, you don't want to follow a band. But it was just a very clever way to bring out music. And, it's really fun to watch those shows with Dick. There was one of my favorite ones was 4 directors. And one was Peter Bogdanovich, and he was working on What's Up, Doc, which is really one of the, I've never laughed harder. I'm sure maybe a couple times, but that was one of the funniest. I remember I was with my father and my sister, and that was during the time when my parents were getting divorced, and my father was doing good things with us, and my mother was doing good things with us and trying to win us over. So we were winning because they were, we were in the middle of their war. And my father took us to see What's Up, Doc. And it's so funny. It's still funny to this day because it has that slapstick and it has a formula to it, which is really good. So I was just saying there was Peter Bogdanovich, and I'm trying to think. Mel Brooks was on the show, and John Capra. And not John. Is it John Capra? No. Why can't Peter Capra? Cappy Capra. I forget. One of the Capras. But anyway, it was just. It was fun to watch those Dick Cavett shows and to, and to see how much respect he got from the people. I remember seeing one show where Raquel Welch? Oh, Sophia Loren, who's my hero. All my friends growing up had Farrah Fawcett posters. You remember the one with the nipples? But I had Sophia Loren. Not literally. I had her picture on my wall.
Well, I'm sure a lot of us wish we had Sophia Loren.
She was a guest on Letterman, and when I was like so nervous, I never get nervous, but I wanted to meet her, and I got to meet her and tell her the story how I had her on the wall in the movie Two Women, and she kissed my hand, and I turned into, I was butter. I mean, literally melted. You could have taken a lobster claw and put it in me and been very happy.
That's amazing. How, you've been doing stand-up for so long. How do you keep the passion alive after decades of doing, stand-up in the biz? Is there a technique that you use? Is there something that you do to, kind of keep that flame going?
Yeah, it's so powerful and so beautiful and so again, you can't teach comedy, but you learn from stage time. Mm-hmm. And the more I perform, the better I get. Like if I was good last year and I work hard this year, I'm going to be better than last year, no matter what. You just can't help it. Mm-hmm. And I love that feeling of, just the sound that people laughing. It's so beautiful. And it's not applause that we cherish. It's laughter. And I remember when I was in LA, and in November of '87, I was kind of living in both New York and LA. and I did a show at the Comedy Store, and it was okay. It wasn't spectacular or anything. And people came up to me afterwards, and they were saying they had a show on Saturday for the Shriners, and would I do it? It was like $200, and I had like 35 cents in my pocket, and I was like, I'll do it. And then so I dress up a little nice, and I go to this thing, what the Shriners are. They're like the Elks Club or whatever. And I show up, and I had misheard them. It wasn't the Shriners. It was Shrine Auditorium. And Shrine Auditorium is 8,800 seats. And I thought I was going to be like 30 guys in bolo ties or something. And I shocked. I'm like, what? So I go in the back door, I knock in, I go, hi, my name's Eddie Brill. Mr. Brill, follow us. I'm Mr. Brill. I've never been called Mr. Brill in my life, except when I'm being yelled at by my mother, maybe. But I was Mr. Brill. And they're taking me to my dressing room. My apartment where I was living in LA at the Comedy Store was tinier than my dressing room. And I'm passing the other dressing rooms. It's the Shirelles, the Coasters, Jerry Lee Lewis, Jimmy Stewart, the actor, me. And I'm like, what? I went in my room and closed the door, and I couldn't breathe. I was like, what is this? So the stage manager comes in and he says, hi, there's the show. And here's the list. And I'm looking at the list. I'm following Jimmy Stewart. And I'm like, what does he do? And they said he reads his poetry. And, so you're going to go on after him. And I'm freaking out. Like, and there's 8,800 people in the audience, and it's packed. And the guy tells me it's a benefit, and we do it, raise money for kids. And, all these acts come in, for a little bit of pay, and then we all perform. I go, okay. So luckily, I don't know if you've ever met this comedian, Vic Dunlop. Vic Dunlop was a funny comedian, really nice guy too. Had the googly eyes. He would do bits with them and would sell them after the show and make more money selling the googly eyes than he did probably from the stand-up. And luckily he was backstage because he was the offstage mic guy. And he would like, ladies and gentlemen, Jimmy Stewart. And he said to me, Eddie, have you ever worked a crowd this big? I said, no, I think 200 people maybe. And he said, well, just make sure you're deliberate and let the words go out to the back of the room and come back. Great advice. I did it. I had and there's Jimmy Stewart on stage, and I'm waiting to go on, and the stage manager's going, look, this stage is so big. When he's done, start making your way toward the mic, because it's going to take you a while. You got to take a cab to get to the mic. So so he's Jimmy Stewart. He's reading his poetry, his beautiful flowers, and the trees, and I'm like, holy shit. So he's done, and he's walking off, and I'm walking, and I pass him, and I don't know what to do, so I give him a head nod, and he gives me a head nod, and I felt like I just had sex with Jimmy Stewart. It was so incredible. And I went, and luckily I listened to what Vic had said, and I have to say it was one of the best sets of my life. And the sound of 8,800 people laughing, maybe 8,750. There was a couple of people that maybe didn't laugh, but a tear came to my eye, like, because it was overwhelming, the sound that it made. And it was just incredible. And I couldn't believe, and Jimmy Stewart, I was done, and he was standing on the side going, very funny, Eddie, very, very funny. And then Jerry Lee Lewis pushed him out of the way and said, you were very funny, son. I want to take my picture with you. And I'm like, where is everyone I know? And the weird part about that story is later that night I had a set at the Comedy Store, and I bombed. And they were drunken assholes at 1 a.m. And I said, look, Jimmy Stewart liked me. So, you can't win in comedy. Every time something great happens, there's going to be something to throw you off. So that was one of the greatest moments in my life, getting that. One time I warmed up the crowd for the Ricky Martin special, which was called Ricky Martin One Day Only, which oddly enough was filmed over 2 days. And that was incredible. There was 11,000 people outside at the Liberty Science place, and I'm performing for 11,000 people. Or you think about television, back when I was at Letterman, there was like 5 or 6 million people watching. It's intimidating, so you can't let it get to you. You just got to do what you do and use your experience from stage So it's constantly beautiful. And every time it's not beautiful, it's okay because of the incredible times. I still love it. I live close to a comedy club, and I see kids on the street hawking, trying to sell tickets to get on stage. And I stop them, and I talk to them about their lives and their careers. And I said, look, I've been doing it 41 years in a row. and I still love it, and I love it more every day. So don't be frustrated. It's worth every challenge that you have is worth it in the end.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Well, Eddie, let me ask you, what do do you have anything going on now too that we could look forward to?
A bunch of things. There's this thing where oddly enough, on the on Saturday, I think it's the 11th. I know this is coming out before then. I'm doing this thing in Jersey, which is a tribute to your favorite comics, and I'm doing a tribute to George Carlin. And I don't have the name of the venue, but it's in Bergenfield, New Jersey. I don't mean to brag, but but my friend Rich Duggan, who's a great guy and a great comic and an old friend, is putting it together. Bill Dana, the actor Jose Jimenez, and he was the very first head writer of the Tonight Show with Steve Allen. He also was a great actor and also played characters. And his brother wrote the incidental music for the Get Smart. I mean, it was Bill Dana was this incredible guy who also went to Emerson College like myself. Bill and I became very close, and he was hosting this event called not event, but a series called the American Comedy Archives. And he interviewed all the greatest stars, from Joan Rivers to Bob Hope and, everybody. So he was like 97, and he said, Eddie, I'm getting tired and I want you to take over. So I've been doing that. If you go to the American Comedy Archives online, I interview Stephen Wright, Poundstone, Roy Wood Jr., Mario Cantone, Bill Burr. I think those are because I just took over now and I've been doing those. So that's all over the internet. I've had, my own internet show. It was called the Break with Eddie Brill. And when you asked me the question about high school, I was talking to comics about when they were kids, what influenced them. And there's 11 of them, and there's Susie Essman and Caroline Ray and Jim Gaffigan. So there's a lot of that stuff. And then another thing that is going on that I'm very proud of is the Catskill Comedy Festival. There's a guy named Robbie, and Robbie's a brilliant writer and producer. And we did it last year, and we got Bobcat Goldthwait and Ophira Eisenberg and a whole bunch of incredible comedians, Tony V from Boston. And it went very well. And my son, who's a comedian, helped out and put some shows on and performed. So we decided to do it again this year. We got Colin Quinn, and we got Ophira back, and Erin Jackson, who's one of my favorite comedians ever. And my son's doing a show. And then we're on a panel on the Saturday. It's the 17th, 18th, and 19th of October. And we had her name, Sarah Jane, who's in charge of The Moth, is running a panel on the history of comedy and all that kind of stuff, and I'm on it. So we're, got a million things. It doesn't stop. I can't get enough of that funky stuff.
You know what? As soon as you said The Moth,
Yeah.
I don't know if you've seen, it went viral. It was a little kid named Matthew. I believe he was British, and he was saying that he named his moth. Instead of Matthew, it was Mothew, Mothew, something like. Anyway,
Right.
When I first saw it, it was adorable, and it's just one of those things. And now, when I hear the word moth, I think of this little kid.
Sure.
He was so
Yeah, well, he's
cute.
smart to do that. He put
It was really
he put his
cute.
little idea into your brain. But
Yeah.
the Moth is one of the most respected storytelling shows in the world. I've done Risk a bunch of times too, and I think I have a Risk story that's coming out soon. But I can't, and I also teach workshops, and I
Yes,
do.
I was going to ask you about that. The West Side Comedy Club.
West Side Comedy Club. It's a 2-day thing, and again, I don't pretend to teach comedy. Some people think you can. I don't believe that you can. You either have it or you don't. But if you have it, what you can do is refine it. If you give feedback to other people, you learn a lot from giving feedback. So it's like a feedback workshop, and people have done very well out of it. And, and I've done well out of it. I learn a lot. We get together and we really, it's a very safe space to be really honest with each other. And I'm proud of it. And I've been doing that for around the world for 30 years. And the 13th and 14th of December. And I only use 10 students, so it sells out very quickly. So go to the website of, West Side Comedy Club. I already think we have 4 people who've signed up, and we'll have 10 very soon. So, even though it's a couple of months away, sign up for it. It's really, really fun. If you've never done stand-up, it's okay. but we prefer people who have, so that, you know, it's interesting. There are people who are in the audience who are new to the workshops, and they go, well, I've never done stand-up. How can I give advice? Well, I say, well, you're an audience member. You know what you like. You know what makes you laugh. And now you'll really understand what makes you laugh and why it makes you laugh. And I was talking about math earlier because I was a math student, really good in math. Math is so essential when it comes to comedy writing or music writing. It's all very mathematical, a little, you know, analytic geometry and all this kind of stuff comes into play, where you come up with the ending of a joke and then you work your way backwards, just like you would do on a math problem, to be able to create that. So, you know, it's really fun to look at comedy and take it apart and put it back together again. And it's kind of what we do. So
Yeah.
there's just some of the many things. And you can go to Eddie Comic at Instagram, and you can write to me and ask me questions. And I'll, as long as you don't mind me being honest, you know, I'll be happy to answer the questions for you.
Yeah, absolutely. We end the show with what piece of advice would you give to someone just starting in stand up? So I'm, you know, I think you've given so much advice during
stage time.
Yeah.
That's the key. Get on stage, whatever it takes, with integrity, get on stage. You know, like when I was saying I had done comedy in college and improv and sketch and a little bit of stand up. And then I quit because I thought I was going to have a career in it. But once I got back on stage, you know, it was, you know, I had asked some people what's the best piece of advice. They all said the same thing: stage time, stage time, stage time. You know, those are the three pieces of advice. So when I started again in '84, a friend from college called me up and said, there's a restaurant that's looking to do comedy on Sunday nights. Will you put it together? And I did. And it was the place where Adam Sandler first ever worked, and Wendy Liebman, and you know, on and on and on. All the great comics came there because I was a comic, treating them really well. And because I started a club, I was able to work every weekend hosting the thing. So you go to a bar in your neighborhood and say, look, on Tuesday nights, I noticed there's not many people here. Let me run a comedy show. And you keep all the drinks, and I'll take the door and pay the comedians, or do it for free and let everyone get stage time. You got to do it's not easy, because if it was easy, everyone would do it. It's so amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I say, if everybody, I don't know if you guys have glasses over there. Can we raise a glass and cheers?
I have my coconut water.
There we go. Perfect.
Yeah.
This is actually iced tea that I'm drinking. And
I love iced tea. It's my favorite.
Don't let the legs fool you. I'm really a mermaid is what my cup says.
Ah, very nice. Well, cheers.
But cheers to you. Thank you so much for being here. And we are running the scroll right now. If you want to hear more about Eddie and see his shows and be part of the workshop, it's www.eddiebrill.com. And we're just so happy that you decided to stop by. Thank you for
Absolutely
everything you had to share. Like, I just feel, number one, I'm smiling, and it's been a rough couple months. So I'm, I'm so grateful, and I'm just very appreciative too that you came on the show. So thank you so much, and maybe we'll do it again.
All right,
it's definitely a pleasure to meet you.
You say the word, and I'm there. We can even go have some food and laugh together.
Definitely, I would love that.
Sounds good.
Take care of yourself. Mwah. Take care.
Bye, guys.
Thank you again.
Bye bye.
Wow. So
wow.
that was great.
A workshop. That was a workshop in and of itself. Anybody that listens just got so many nuggets that they can use to, become a better stand-up comic, or even just know kind of what direction they want to go in. I learned so much myself.
So, I mean, it's been a minute since we've actually been doing shows. And first off, it's great to be back. It's great to be talking again. We've got a lot to catch up on and talk about that I'm sure people will be interested in. It'll be a something.
Yes, it will. Yes, it will. Just bring your Kleenex. So
I think so.
For sure. But we so appreciate you guys, and thank you so much again to Eddie Brill for coming on the show. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, the Silver Phoenix Happy Hour, and we'll see you next time. Take care, everybody, and go birds. Go birds. See ya.